My name is Sophie O'Rourke, and I had originally set out to make a video highlighting what is not taught about Indigenous history in American schools using an interview style format with my former APUS history teacher from high school. As I set out to do this, I realized two important things pretty quickly. One, this problem is so much bigger and badder than I could ever convey in one video. And two, that I had a precious resource that I was taking for granted by making the video about the institution the man taught for and not the man who taught for 42 years for the American education system in social studies. What I learned through these conversations, if nothing else, was that we cannot take for granted the people whose knowledge and opinions we have around us, nor the connections we make and relationships we form while doing so. One thing we have learned this semester is that change can only go as far as those in power want it to. Change may be spoken about among individuals of the minority, but there will unfortunately never be real change, real lasting change, until those in power acknowledge the disparities between them and decide to move forward. Pay attention to the language we use, particularly Bob's. Notice how we don't get offended and we're actually kind of enjoying having an important discourse between the two of us. It can be a really good learning experience. So I hope you enjoy. I'm really excited to share this with you. And thank you so much for watching.
Range of issues out there on a table, and everybody is going to prioritize ones that are more important to them. And a lot of times, I think some of that gets impacted by what they've lived through and experienced and what they've seen in their lives and how much they know. That's what I love about history, because I think the more we know about history, the greater impact that has on our values and our morals and our ethics, and what we once thought was right and no longer feel is right, what was once acceptable and we no longer accept that. I think that plays a big role. Yes, indigenous population and Native Americans has almost entirely been written by white America, and the values of the Native Americans have been discredited, dismantled, ignored, and to some extent forgotten. I was fortunate to read a couple of books last summer by an author named Kent Newburn. One of the books was, I think, entitled "Neither Wolf Nor Dog," and it was written. He's a white author, but it was written based on the memories and values of an elderly Native American. And it was really a great eye-opener and a refresher, not necessarily teaching me or telling me about things I'd never known before, but reminding me of things that I had once known but had forgotten about, because white society has forgotten about it. The Hollywood doesn't do anything. The television doesn't portray it. Writers don't write books about it anymore, and it doesn't play in mainstream America. And so, yeah, I had forgotten the degree of cruelty and ignorance that the white population had inflicted upon our Native Americans.
Yeah.
Reminding me by reading those books. That was a great eye opener and refresher for me.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, really good point of the things that we maybe do learn as kids or when we're younger that we forget because they're not reinforced.
Reinforced, great word.
Yeah,
Yes.
because
All you're taught about Christopher Columbus is that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
yep,
Hail the hero, Christopher Columbus. You know, we even have a day, Columbus Day, named
yep,
after him. Well, in most states, a few have fortunately changed it a little bit, but
yeah.
we celebrate the image of what we want the man to be, rather than the reality of what his actions actually accomplished.
Because Christopher Columbus is all of us, right? All white Europeans. That's us. That's our story.
Yeah.
And we want to see ourselves as this white savior. We want to see ourselves as this explorer that goes where no man has gone before. So it makes sense why we push that narrative of Columbus, because it's reflective of how we want to see ourselves. But
and also as the superior race.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but it like
self-gratifying.
yeah, yep, yeah. You can think of off the top of your head, or like, what do you know of them? We'll say in Minnesota. We'll keep it in Minnesota.
I have a general knowledge of the fact that through the course of history, white Americans used schools to rob Indian children of their families and their cultures, to take Indian children and put them in white-run schools in an attempt to, well, we said at the time, civilize them, but really it was an attempt to rob them of their identity, and to rob them of their culture, to rob them of their history, to rob them of their religion, to rob them of their values, and to try to stamp our culture and our values and our way of life into their very souls. And I think it was horribly misguided. It was tragic. It was such an extreme disservice that it's almost unmentionable. And yet we did that for decades before we finally discontinued that practice. And I think the Native American community in Minnesota has been forever tarnished because of that.
Right. Like, that's something I've been wrestling with and thinking about a lot in this class, is we did all of these things, and a lot of them have been repealed and pulled back. Some maybe haven't. But what is our place, and as white Minnesotans, and what can we do? How can we reckon that? And I think the very beginning is by acknowledging it happened, and we're not even doing that. I mean, you and I right now,
to a fair degree.
Right? Yeah. I
agree that I think most white Minnesotans just want to pretend it never happened.
Right.
And forget about it. But to forget about it is to diminish it and to demean the fact. Should we be ashamed of it? Of course. Should we be embarrassed by it? Of course. But we should also continue to make sure that each new generation is aware of what we did.
Absolutely.
And not that we're proud of it. We don't have to be proud of it, and we shouldn't be proud of it. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
And just because history books are written by us doesn't mean we should omit the bad things we did.
Right.
Which unfortunately too often happens.